My wife cheated with her boss, got pregnant, and then I found out she secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her sister's offshore account. Now she's threatening to take everything in a bitter custody and property battle. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this, but here I am, sitting in my living room, staring at my phone like it's some kind of crystal ball. The most unexpected thing happened last week. I found out my wife had been cheating on me with her boss, Mark. Not only that, she's pregnant with his kid, and to top it all off, she secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account into her sister's offshore account. Yeah, I know, it sounds like some bad soap opera, but this is real life. And honestly, I still can't believe I was so blind. We'd been together for over 10 years, married for almost 8. I thought we had a solid life, a good marriage, and a future I could count on. Was always a little bitchy, but I figured that was just her personality, sharp-tongued, quick to anger, but she loved me deep down. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I see all the signs I missed. She was secretive with her phone, always hiding her messages, deleting things. She'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts, and she started working late more often, claiming she needed to impress her boss, Mark, who was a big shot in her company. The first real red flag was when I noticed her acting weird about money. She'd always been pretty good with finances, but suddenly she was evasive. She'd brush off my questions about the bank accounts, say she was saving for something special, or that it was none of my business. One night I caught her sneaking her phone into the bathroom when she thought I wasn't looking. I saw a message pop up from Mark, something about meeting up tonight and making sure everything's perfect. I froze, my stomach sank. That was the moment I realized she was lying to me. A few days later, I decided to dig a little deeper. I installed a monitoring app on her phone, something I'd never thought I'd do, but I needed answers. That's when I saw the messages, flirty, suggestive, sometimes outright sexual. They weren't just talking about work, they were talking about sex, plans to meet, excuses to hide it from me. I felt sick. My head was spinning. How could she do this? To me, to us. I kept telling myself she'd deny everything if I confronted her, but the evidence was there, plain as day. The worst part was the pregnancy. I found out by accident. She left a doctor's bill open on her laptop with her name and the due date. When I asked her about it, she lied, said it was a mistake that but I knew better. The timing was too perfect and I could tell she was hiding something. That's when I put it all together. She was cheating, got pregnant, and was planning to keep it all hidden until she was ready to tell me. I was furious. Not just because she cheated, but because she lied, manipulated, and betrayed everything we built. I wanted to punch her, scream at her. Make her feel what I was feeling, devastation, anger, betrayal. But I held back, knowing that this wasn't just about yelling. It was about real consequences, real decisions. I needed to figure out what to do next. And that's when I started planning my revenge, even if I didn't realize it fully yet. After I found out about the affair, everything changed in an instant. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying those messages, the way she lied so easily, how she looked at Mark like he was her salvation. The betrayal cut deep. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her lies. Always had a way of making everything seem like it was my fault. She'd cry, accuse me of being paranoid, say I was overreacting. But now I knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. I decided I had to confront her face to face. I couldn't keep hiding behind screens or pretending everything was okay. One night, I came home early from work, caught her in the act. She was in our bedroom, half-dressed, her hair a mess, flushed from whatever she'd been doing. Her eyes widened when she saw me. I could see the panic in her face, but she quickly masked it with that bitchy smirk she always had. She tried to brush me off, said it was just a fling, that it didn't mean anything. Said Mark was just a bossy jerk and she was stressed out. That was her go-to excuse: stress, work pressure, always the victim. I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the pregnancy, the money transfer. Her face went pale, but she still lied, told me she was just talking to Mark, that it was innocent, that she was only with him because he was so good in bed, and she was confused. I felt my blood boil. How could she be so callous, so selfish? She was already pregnant with Mark's kid, and she still had the nerve to pretend it was nothing serious. Her reaction to my confrontation was classic. She got defensive, started crying, calling me crazy, saying I was overreacting, that I was jealous and paranoid. She said she loved me, that she'd never cheat if I just gave her a little more attention, a little more love. But I saw through her lies. She was already planning her escape, her new life with Mark. I could tell she was trying to keep me quiet, keep me from digging deeper, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That night I couldn't sleep. I felt like my world was crashing down. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating, it was about her lying, her manipulation. She lied about the pregnancy, lied about her feelings, lied about everything. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and profound sadness. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but now I wasn't sure what that even meant anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to do something, and I had to do it fast. The next morning, I started digging into the money transfer. I knew she was hiding something, and I was right. I found out she transferred $250, $0 to her sister's offshore account, money she'd secretly been siphoning out for months. That was the final straw. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. She was planning to run away with Mark, her pregnancy, her lies, all of it. I realized I had to act, but I wasn't sure what my next move would be. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I'd built, not without a fight. I sat there, staring at the bank statement, feeling completely numb. My life was falling apart, and I didn't know if I could fix it. I was furious, hurt, and feeling a strange sense of clarity. I had to decide whether to fight for her, to try and save what was left, or to cut my losses and walk away. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going down without a fight. She'd taken far more than just my love. She was trying to take my future, my stability, everything. And I was going to make sure she paid for it. The more I dug into her financials, the angrier I got. That $250, $0 she transferred. It wasn't just some impulsive move. It was carefully planned, hidden behind layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. Been sneaking money out for months, probably even before I suspected anything. I didn't want to believe she was capable of this kind of deception, but the evidence was staring me right in the face. She'd been preparing to run, and she'd been doing it all behind my back. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her drain everything, especially not to fund some new life with Mark. I contacted my lawyer that same day. We went over everything: her secret transfers, the affair, the pregnancy, the lies. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but I knew I had to be calm and strategic. My lawyer told me I had a solid case to freeze her assets, especially since she was trying to hide money in offshore accounts. That was my first move: stop her from taking any more and start building a case for the divorce and custody battle I knew was coming. Meanwhile, kept up the act. She started acting even more bitchy, throwing tantrums whenever I asked about the money or her plans. She accused me of trying to control her, call me paranoid, and say I was just jealous of Mark. That was her favorite line, trying to turn everything into some kind of jealousy or insecurity on my part. But I saw through her bullshit. She was guilty, and she knew it. Her temper flared whenever I pressed her about the offshore account, about the pregnancy, about Mark. It was like she was trying to distract me, to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. One day she snapped. She started screaming at me, calling me pathetic, jealous, and a loser who can't keep his wife happy. She told me I'd never see my kid if I kept pushing her. That was a low blow even for her, but I didn't back down. I told her if she kept lying, I'd call the authorities, get a court order to freeze her assets, and take her to court for custody. That's when she finally broke down a little. She admitted she was afraid of losing everything, but she still insisted she was innocent, that she was the victim here. That night, after she went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the ceiling. I felt like I was losing my mind. My trust was shattered and I didn't know how to move forward. The woman I loved, the woman I married, had betrayed me so completely. The pregnancy, the affair, the money, all of it hit me like a ton of bricks. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. I'd always thought I was a good husband, but here I was, feeling utterly helpless, betrayed, and angry. I knew I couldn't just walk away without fighting. I had to protect what was mine, my money, my future, my relationship with my kids if I had any chance of keeping them. I started gathering evidence, screenshots, bank statements, her messages, everything I could use in court. I was determined to fight for my rights, to make her face the consequences of her actions. Deep down, I also knew I was doing this to regain some sense of control. She'd taken so much from me already, and I wasn't going to let her take my dignity too. So I made a plan. I was going to confront her again, tell her I wasn't backing down, that I'd fight her for everything. Her money, her lies, the custody of our child if it came to that. I was ready to go all the way. I didn't care if she called me crazy or paranoid anymore. I knew the truth, and I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done. The betrayal had cut so deep, but I was determined to come out on top, no matter what it took. The tension between us kept escalating. His attitude grew more hostile and her lies became more elaborate. She'd spin stories about how she was just stressed at work, how Mark was just a business contact, and how I was crazy for suspecting her. But I had enough. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. I knew the truth, and I was ready to fight for my rights and my sanity. One evening, I decided to lay everything out on the table. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding, and told her I had enough of her lies. I pulled out the bank statements, the offshore account details, the messages, everything I'd been gathering. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "This isn't just about an affair. You're stealing from us, planning to run away with Mark, and you're pregnant with his kid. I want the truth now, what's really going on." Her face twisted into a mixture of rage and fear. She tried to deny everything, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I was contacting a lawyer, that I was going to freeze her assets and start divorce proceedings. That's when she finally cracked. She screamed at me, calling me a jealous, insecure loser, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. She said she loved me, that she was just trying to find herself, that Mark was just giving her the attention she'd been craving. But I saw through her lies. She was desperate, trying to save her own ass. Her reaction was pure chaos. She stormed out of the room, then came back with tears streaming down her face. She begged me not to take everything away. Said she'd do anything to fix it, that she'd go to counseling, that she'd end things with Mark. I knew it was all bullshit. She had her chance, and she'd already crossed the line too many times. I told her I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore. I was only interested in protecting what was left of my life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head, how she looked at me with those fake tears, how she lied so convincingly. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and a strange sense of relief. Finally, I was taking control. I realized I couldn't fix her, couldn't make her love me again. She made her choice, and it wasn't me. All I could do now was prepare for the storm ahead, legal battles, custody fights, and trying to salvage what I could from the wreckage of our marriage. In the days that followed, I contacted my lawyer again. We started the process of freezing her accounts, subpoenaing her messages, and building a case for divorce. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her offshore accounts more thoroughly. I knew she'd be trying to hide more than she was letting on. I also had to prepare myself emotionally. I was hurt, furious, and betrayed, but I couldn't let those feelings consume me. I had to stay focused. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about protecting myself and my future. Meanwhile's attitude grew more aggressive. She started threatening me, saying she'd take everything I had if I tried to ruin her life. She said she'd fight for custody of the baby, even if it meant dragging me through hell. I could see her desperation, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I was done playing her game. I had to be strategic, firm, and prepared for whatever came next, because in her mind, she thought she could get away with everything. But I was about to show her that she was wrong. The legal process moved quickly once I hired my lawyer. We filed for divorce, and I made sure to include a request for custody of the child, knowing full well's manipulative tendencies. My lawyer also filed motions to freeze her offshore accounts, including the one with the $250, $0 she transferred without my knowledge. That money was supposed to be our savings, our future. Now it was just a bargaining chip in what was turning into a full-blown war. I couldn't believe she thought she could get away with this, but I was determined to make her pay for every lie, every betrayal. In the meantime, his behavior only got worse. She started calling me every name in the book, threatening me with legal action if I tried to take her to court. She even accused me of trying to ruin her life, as if I was the villain here. But I knew the truth. She was the one who'd betrayed everything we built, who'd secretly planned her escape with Mark and our unborn child. Her threats didn't scare me. If anything, they fueled my resolve. I was sick of her lies and manipulation. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. One day she showed up unexpectedly at my house, furious and crying. She begged me to drop the divorce, to let her stay because she needed me, because she loved us. She told me she'd end things with Mark, that she'd do anything to stay. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I didn't believe her, that I knew about her lies, her money transfers, her pregnancy with Mark's kid. I told her I had evidence and that I was going to fight for custody, not just for me, but for the child she was trying to hide from me. Her face twisted in anger, then in despair. She realized she'd lost control. As the weeks went by, the court proceedings intensified. I had everything ready. Evidence of her affair, her secret offshore accounts, the transfer of money, her lies about the pregnancy. I also had a private investigator dig into her financials more thoroughly, finding more hidden accounts, more money she'd tried to keep from me. It was shocking how much she'd been hiding, how far she was willing to go to cover her tracks. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an outright attempt to steal my future. Meanwhile, began to lash out more aggressively. She threatened to take everything, my house, my savings, even my reputation. She said she'd fight me tooth and nail, that she'd drag me through a bitter custody battle and make sure I got nothing. But I was prepared. I had a good lawyer and I knew how to fight dirty when needed. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I'd already lost so much, my trust, my peace of mind. But I was determined to come out of this with some semblance of control. Throughout it all, I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and relief. Heartbreak because I loved her, even now, even after everything. Relief because I finally knew the truth and was taking action. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, but I was fighting back. I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done, legally and financially. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about protecting what was mine, standing up for myself after being so humiliated and hurt. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready for the fight. In the end, everything unraveled faster than I expected. The court hearings were brutal, but I had all the evidence on my side: texts, bank statements, offshore account details, everything. Lies crumbled under cross-examination, and her desperation was palpable. She tried to deny the affair, but the messages proved otherwise. She claimed she was confused, that she didn't mean to hurt me, but her words rang hollow. The judge saw through her manipulations, and I was awarded primary custody of the child, with strict orders for her to stay away from the offshore accounts and the money she tried to hide. She fought hard, throwing every tantrum and threat she could muster, but it was all futile. The judge ordered her to pay back the stolen $250, $0, and the offshore accounts were frozen. I finally felt some sense of justice, though the pain of betrayal still lingered. The house was split, and I made sure she got the least possible. Her spiteful attitude and lies had done enough damage. I moved out, leaving her behind, knowing I'd never trust her again. Looking back, I realize how much this whole experience changed me. I learned that even the most seemingly perfect relationships can hide deep, dark secrets. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts like a knife. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, stand tall, gather evidence, and never let the other person think they can get away with destroying what you built. I found strength I didn't know I had, and I came out of it knowing I'd survive, even if my heart still aches sometimes. To anyone going through something similar, don't ignore the red flags. Don't be afraid to dig, to fight, to stand up for yourself. People can surprise you in the worst ways, but your worth isn't determined by their lies or betrayal. Protect yourself, your money, your future, and your sanity. And remember, even after the darkest storms, there's a chance for a new beginning. It's not easy, and it hurts like hell, but in the end, you'll find a way to move forward.